just be among everything as always, without trying, without struggle to escape or fight. And you don't need to sustain any state, any mind state. And don't use the knowing or awareness toward any state. You don't need to test yourself against difficulties or against anything at all. Even the endurance that you think that you are testing, it is something that you assume up, something that you have created. It has nothing to do with original truth. You don't need to try to think that you have to pass or overcome anything. You are among all and everything. This is a test already on the surroundings, the perception that you have to have contact with. You can see that desire is always with you. That is a test already in itself. You don't need to try to struggle, to fight or escape. You don't need to try to be stilled or not stilled or overcome anything. It is a desire. Don't let it be a desire to struggle, to fight, or run away. Don't need to try to endure or not endure, renounce or not renounce, cut or not cut. Use the reminder. It will help cut. Even the equanimity, the stillness, it is something that you made up. You will never pass equanimity or stillness because it is something that you made up. You haven't passed anything, you haven't overcome anything. You think that you overcome heat, coldness. You think that you overcome all things, but you haven't overcome yourself. All these states, the mind states, they are Dhamma that you made up. You will never pass this. You will not truly pass it or overcome it. It becomes the self-pride instead. Once you think that you pass it, you overcome it. It becomes a pride. Nibbana doesn't have pass or not pass, overcome or not overcome, because with Nibbana there is no self to endure or not endure, to pass or not pass, to overcome or not overcome with Nibbana. So the word endure or not endure is something we made up as well, this concept. We have to dissolve it. You have to dissolve the inner self that is always constantly trying to be still, not still. Normal, not normal. Renounce, not renounce. Attached or not attached. That one, the one that is always trying, constantly, cut and not cut. Endure or not endure. Make the conclusion to dissolve that inner self that is always trying to renounce, not renounce. Use the conclusion. It isn't about renounce or not renounce, cut or not cut. That is the one who is always trying to cultivate. It is what the desire made. That inner self trying to renounce and not renounce, make the conclusion it isn't about renounce or not renounce. It isn't anything in renouncing or not renouncing. It isn't anything in enduring or not enduring. It isn't anything in cut or not cut. Make that kind of conclusion. So there is no self that create cut or not cut. No self that would be always overlaying cut and not cut. Make the conclusion there is nothing in renounce, not renounce. So there is no self that always create renounced or not renounced. No,
มันไม่อยู่ในฐานะทำปรุงแต่ง
And this is not Dhamma that you made up.
ขันติก็ทำปรุงแต่งอุเบกขาก็ทำปรุงแต่ง
Meditation, mindfulness,
สมาธิก็ทำปรุงแต่งฌานก็
equanimity, mind power, all
ปัญญา
this
ก็เป็นทำปรุงแต่ง
are all Dhamma that you made up. Even the mindfulness itself, that alone is also what we made up about Dhamma. It's not the true Dhamma. Nibbana doesn't have any mindfulness.
มันไม่มีทั้งสมาธิไม่สมาธิ
It doesn't have either having or not having mindfulness, having or not having meditation.
เราไปหลงกำหนดมัน
It's all what
ปัญหาปรุงแต่งที่ผิด
we created. It is the desire create this kind of state, and we call it Dhamma. That's why there is always self-imposing on every state. There is always self-pride overlaying, imposing over every state, because it is what we made up, all this.
มีความหมายไม่ได้
Nibbana doesn't have any meaning. The true Nibbana, every time the Buddha giving Dhamma, reflecting the truth, he just ends the cause of suffering. It means that he ends that inner self that is always trying to do something, trying to cultivate, to practice.
มันไม่มีใครในนิพพาน
That is what the Buddha did. There is no self in Nibbana.
มันไม่จัดว่าเป็นธรรมปรุงแต่งนิพพาน
That's why Nibbana isn't the Dhamma that made up. It's not artificial Dhamma. Because there is no self in Nibbana.
เพราะตัวรู้นี่แค่บรรลุขึ้นมา
And you cannot use knowing or awareness. In regard to Nibbana, you cannot know. It is beyond any knowing. It has nothing to do with knowing or awareness.
ไม่รู้สิ่งที่มันไม่ใช่รู้อะแล้วมันไปรู้ยังไง
You cannot know of something that has nothing to do with knowing, that is beyond knowing.
นิพพานจริงมันจะไม่เกี่ยวกับตัวรู้ไม่รู้เลย
Nibbana, the true Nibbana has nothing to do with knowing or not knowing. The knowing, the awareness is something we assume up to use temporarily.
จะรู้จะคิดจะนึก
To know, to think, to memorize, all this are Dhamma that we assume up for use temporarily.
ไม่ใช่ก็ไม่ใช่อะไรใน
Do not identify there is
ไม่ใช่
anything
อะไรนี่ไม่เลย
in identify or not identify. For mind, it isn't anything in mind or not mind. Whatever word pop up in your head, arise in your mind, dissolve it, because that is what desire made.
จะได้ไม่ใช่อะไรไม่ใช่
So there wouldn't be anything in identified or not identified. There is no one in identified and not identified.
ไม่ใช่อะไรในทนไม่ทน
There isn't anything in enduring or not enduring.
ไม่ทนเลย
That is to go beyond both endure and not endure automatically. The endurance has limit
เพราะมันกำหนดขึ้น
because it is something that you intend on. Whatever you intend on, that is the limitation, that is the limit.
ก็ไปติดทำปรุงแต่ง
You all obsess and attach with Dhamma that you assume up. You assume up Dhamma and grasp on it and attach to it. It has nothing to do with Nibbana. Nibbana isn't anything that you made up.
ไม่จัดว่าเป็น
Nibbana cannot be categorized into anything.
ที่ผ่านมาเป็นองค์
Can't be classified.
ผ่านไป
So all this time, what you are talking about Nibbana or Dhamma is what you speculate, you guessing, and you all have created ways and methods to attain, to reach the goal that you have thought yourself, that you have imagined about Nibbana. And whatever mind state that you obsess with, you fixate on, you stuck at that state. You think that that is the right state to be, and then you stuck
ไม่ใช่สิ่งยึดติดแม้กระทั่งสติ
Even the mindfulness is anatta. It is not something that you should hold on to.
แค่บริโภคใช้งาน
You use it temporarily. It is what we assume up to use
แล้ว
temporarily.
ก็แล้วไป
And we let it go after we use it. It is not to have the mindfulness all the time, be mindful all the time, that you already attach to mindfulness. And that is
กิเลสในวิปัสสนา
kilesa
กิเลสในธรรม
in Dhamma.
ก็มีมา
There is the impurity in Dhamma already. If you started to attach, you have self-pride,
แปลตรง
self-pride in having mindfulness.
ๆยึดสมาธิถือสมาธิ
You attach to it. That is why it is the impurities. That's why it is kilesa. Because you started to attach, to have self-pride.
มันไม่ใช่สิ่งยึดอยู่แล้วในธรรมเอง
All Dhamma is non-attaching
แต่นั่นสิ่ง
in
ที่
itself.
ไม่เอาทั้งเอาทั้งไม่เอา
So something that not grasping, both grasping and not grasping, something that isn't either grasping or not grasping, you cannot cultivate
มันจะ
anything.
เป็นสังสารวัฏทันที
Once you cultivate something, it becomes a samsara.
สิ่งที่มันไม่ใช่การเอา
Because it is something that's not grasping either grasping or not grasping. So you cannot cultivate anything. Once you cultivate something, like you cultivate mindfulness, it becomes the samsara. Whatever kind of dhamma that you try to cultivate, it becomes samsara. All these mind states that you think they are the state of dhamma, they come from the desire. The desire make you want to have this. And originally it comes from the desire to reach Nibbana.
แค่ไม่ตัดหรือว่าที่มันพ้นจริงมันเป็นยังไง
You want to be
เรา
liberated.
ใช้ความอยากในการคาดเดาแล้วความอยากเองก็ไปหลอกวิธี
And you don't know how to get to that liberation. So you use the desire to think of ways and methods to try to attain, trying to go to reach that goal of Nibbana. So everyone that practiced will never reach Nibbana, will never realize Nibbana until they stop practice, they end the practice. That is when they realize Nibbana. In front of the Buddha, people listened to the Buddha and realized Nibbana right there and then without practice anything. It is because the Buddha dissolved anyone, any self that is liberated or not liberated. Anyone who is desire, not desire. The Buddha dissolved that without needing to practice anything. They realized Nibbana.
ในยุคสมัยที่ไม่มีองค์พุทธะมันก็จะมีตัณหาขนขวาย
For the time that there is no Buddha around,
เขาไม่สามารถที่จะบรรลุ
people are driven by desire and find their own ways,
ทุกอย่างมันไม่ได้
speculate and guess
ไม่ได้ในตัณหาคาดเดา
how to reach Nibbana by themselves.
ถ้ามาที่ยุคองค์พุทธะก็มี
If it's during the time that there is no Buddha around, it's all about speculating and guessing. That's why there's a lot of ways and
ยุค
methods.
องค์พุทธะมีวิธีการเลย
But you can see when the Buddha is around, during the Buddha's times, there is no methods or ways to reach Nibbana, only through listening directly from the Buddha. But when the Buddha is not there, it's about guessing and speculate how to reach Nibbana. That's why there are so many ways, many methods.
แล้วก็เลยกลายเป็นวนไปวนมา
But every method doesn't provide any ending, but just give you a loop, a cycle that go on and on. Every way and method, what you think that this is it, this is the way, give you a dead end. Because no one dare let go of the letting go. That's why they cannot go on. That's why they stuck. It is because they think that the practitioner, they think that they need to practice, they need to go on. That's why they wouldn't let it go. not letting go of the letting go. So they are stuck at the dead end of one-pointed
เพราะ
mind.
ทุกคนเริ่มต้นในตัวปฏิบัติมาแต่นั้น
No
เขาต้อง
one
รักษาตัว
dare
ปฏิ
let
บัติ
go of the letting go
ที่
because
สุด
they
ของ
start
ตัวป
off
ฏิบัติมันเป็นการ
by
อยู่แค่ตรง
practicing,
นิ่งเฉยทรงเฉย
and the end of the
มัน
practice
ไป
of
ต่อไม่
every
ได้มัน
practice
ตัน
is
ตันอยู่ตรงรู้นิ่งในรู้
stillness
ตันอยู่ตรงเฉยรู้ในเฉยแต่มันไม่ยอม
is
ทิ้งตัวมันเอง
indifference,
นิ่งไม่
and
ยอม
there
ทิ้
is
งตัว
the
นิ่ง
knowing
ไม่ยอม
in
ทิ้
that
งตัวตัวเอ
stillness,
ง
knowing in
ไม่
that
มีใครยอมทิ้งหรอก
indifference,
เพราะว่ามัน
and
เรา
no
ทำ
one
ด้วยกันเจริญ
dare letting go.
ตัวเจริญเอามามันสั่งสมมากเข้ามากเข้าใคร
So
จะกล้าทิ้ง
once the practitioner been earning this cultivation
ที่ก็
for
ผ่าน
quite a
องค์
while,
ธรรมมาแล้ว
they wouldn't let go
ผ่าน
unless
ธรรมมาแล้วก็
for those
ไม่รู้จะ
who have the highest parami that been listening to the truth from the Buddha over and over, at one point they would let go of the letting go
แต่
themselves.
นอกนั้น
They would know how to let go of the letting go. But for the rest who haven't got the same parami, they wouldn't dare letting go. They would just hang on to
ตัน
it
ก็ตันอยู่อย่างนั้นน่ะ
and be stuck at that dead end
เบา
of the
ก็คา
practice.
เบาอยู่อย่างนั้นไม่กล้า
Even
ทิ้ง
when
เบา
they feel light, they're stuck at that lightness. They wouldn't let go of that lightness. It's always the case.
กล้าที่จะไม่
No
เอาก็
one
ไม่เอาเอง
would dare not grasping the non-grasping,
ตรงนี้
but only sustain whatever state
เพราะมันลงทุน
that is the final state of the
ความตนี
practice.
มันจะเยอะ
They've been
ความ
invested
ตนี
a
ใน
lot.
สภาวะ
That's
มัน
why
จะเยอะ
they're
ความ
so
แน่นในสภาวะมันจะเยอะ
precious
ไม่มีใครกล้าทิ้ง
of the practice, of the cultivation. They wouldn't dare letting go of any Dhamma state, of any state they've been cultivated. They're still stuck at that state of knowing the stillness, knowing that indifference, and they think that that is the extinction, but actually it is not. It is just a dropping state. It is not the extinction. It is only a dropping, a rest.
ดับจริงๆมันไม่ใช่อะไร
The true extinction, there is nothing in that stillness.
มันไม่ใช่อะไรใน
There is nothing in being still or not still, being indifferent or not indifferent. There is no cause of suffering overlaying or imposing on that stillness, on that indifference. But the samsara have this extinction, the concept of extinction of the samsara is not the true extinction. It is only a dropping state because there is still self in that stillness, in that indifference.
มีอะไรในนิ่งอะไร
There is still something in that stillness, in that indifference, and that something is still a seed of certain thing that will
มันไปตันอยู่ใน
be developed into something
บ้างอยู่นั้นน่ะ
that is a dead end.
แล้วก็สบายแล้วอิ่มแล้ว
Sometimes
อย่างเงี้ยมันก็
the
อยู่
practitioner feel that there is such a blissful feeling, being so light in that stillness, and think that that is Nibbana.
ไม่เอาทั้งเอา
They are
ไม่เอา
deceived. So go on in a way that you're not grasping, both grasping and not grasping. Everything.
มันก็ไม่มีพูดถึงผู้ไม่ถึง
And there wouldn't be anyone
ไม่มี
reaching
ที่มีพูดถึงผู้ไม่ถึง
Nibbana or not reaching
มี
Nibbana.
ผู้บรรลุมี
If
ผู้ไม่
there
บรร
is
ลุของ
still
หลอก
someone, still
หลอกให้
self,
บรรลุหลอกให้ไม่บรรลุ
liberated or not liberated, you are deceived by desire.
จะหลงใช่หลงไม่ใช่กัน
Still being deluded
เราไม่ใช่
in identifying this is it, this is not it. What is it that it is that, in that what is and what is not? Just keep on remind yourself the essence of enlightenment. Keep on blessing among all and everything.
มันเป็นเนื้อหามหาคุณา
It is the essence of great compassion. Everything. No need to renounce, not renounce. Everything. That is the essence of great compassion. Just go on that way, blessing. Keep on blessing. Don't focus on yourself or try to gain anything for yourself. There's always a grasping of taking for self. Every time you think of self, there's always desire to grasp onto something. So keep giving out blessing, everything. It's a torture. Searching, seeking, finding way. That is a self-torture, but no one realizes that. No one enlightened to the fact that trying to renounce, not renounce, attach or not attach, actually it is a self-torture in itself. Trying to renounce and not renounce, keep on renouncing and not renouncing, that is a self-torturing. You might think that you can cut yourself away from everything, off from everything, but there is a self that is keep on cutting, that is still trying to cut. So you cut off everything, but you haven't cut off the self that is doing the cutting off. So go on, not grasping, both grasping and not grasping with everything. It is not a true cutting yet. As long as there is still a cutting, it means that there is still a self doing the cutting. You haven't let go of the cutting yet. You haven't cut the cutting. You haven't let go of the cutting. The cutting hasn't let go of the cutting yet. So there is still the cutting remain. It's not the true cutting, not a true mind. Just keep blessing and it won't be about grasping onto anything. There is no need to cut or not cut. Not grasping, both grasping and not grasping together with everything. Everything. Keep on. Remind yourself the great compassion thought. Remind yourself and help in for everything. Everything doesn't have either grasping or not grasping. As it is, there is no liberation or not liberation with everything. So liberate or not liberate is something we made up, we have created. That's why it's shift from Nibbana, from the true Nibbana. It's not true to Nibbana. liberated
ถ้า
or
อยู่
not
แท่นอยู่เลย
liberated.
ไม่รู้อะไรเป็นอะไรสักอย่างเป็นอย่างนี้
It's not
ยัง
what
โลกิยะยัง
Nibbana
โลกุ
is
ตระ
about.
อยู่เลยยังกำ
It
กา
is
อยู่เลย
still half-half.
ยังรุ่มดอนอ
It
ยู่
is
กับโลกิยะ
still
โลกุตระอยู่เลย
struggle between worldly and spiritual, worldly and Dhamma. It is not Nibbana. Liberated or not liberated.
มันไม่มีทั้งบรรลุแล้วไม่บรรลุ
There isn't either liberated or not liberated.
บรรลุไม่บรรลุ
Nibbana
ยังครึ่งกลางๆอยู่กับโลกุตระโลกิยะอยู่เลย
To be liberated
นิพ
or
พาน
not
ไม่ลง
liberated is a halfway between
ในบทสรุป
Dhamma
นิพพานก็คือ
and worldly. So make the conclusion of Nibbana,
มันไม่มี
the
ข้างล่าง
essence
ไม่ละ
of Nibbana,
นิพพาน
which doesn't have either liberated or not liberated.
มันไม่มีทั้งทนไม่ทน
It doesn't have either endure or not endure. Doesn't have either attached or not attached with Nibbana. That is everything.